Live from News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, this is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now. Powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
The post-Brady era of Buccaneers football begins with Tampa Bay reportedly signing former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield. The question is, are the Buccaneers getting their quarterback of the future, or are they getting a TV commercial superstar? Dan, Lucas, Karen Loftus, our Bucs insiders, joining us here on Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. We're activating a Facebook Live poll on who you think the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers should be in 2023. Is it Baker Mayfield? Is it Kyle Trask? That poll is live across our platforms. Dan and Karen, great to see you both for this off-season edition on a big day in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers apparently going to the Jets, but really we're focused on Buccaneers football. We're focused, of course, on the Buccaneers now. Brady passing the baton, if you will, over to Baker Mayfield, or will it be Kyle Trask? But I want to start here in this episode. I love this little nugget. You might remember the NFL 100 commercial from a couple of years back. For our Spotify and Apple Podcast audience, you can't see this. So there's a moment in this great commercial where Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady are seated side by side.
Dude, I forgot about this.
Isn't this really cool?
I totally forgot about this.
And
Good find.
Thank you. And passes his rings off to Baker as kind of a hold these, young fella, kind of moment. So this is a kind of an interesting moment now in time because Tom Brady is passing the baton off to Baker Mayfield with this one-year deal that has reportedly been signed. What's the latest, Dan and Karen, on what we're hearing on this?
Well, it is a one-year deal, upwards of $8.5 million if he meets incentives. I believe the base is 4. Karen had heard from the agent, and so 4 is the base. This is the old classic case of prove it if you're in Baker Mayfield's shoes, and maybe this can lead to something bigger and better down the road if the Bucs have a tremendous season. And from the Bucs' perspective, you've got your guy to get the start, to make that transition, and not just come out and say, we're going to tank this season. You're instilling confidence in your locker room on the biggest day of the year in the offseason, and you're showing your team and your fan base that we're still competitive and we're going to try and go out and win the NFC South, and this is our best chance right here. Given all of our circumstances, this is our best chance.
Karen, what do you think?
And that was the thinking going into this offseason once Brady retired again. Todd Bowles had said, I had heard a quote from him from the Combine saying, we have a lot of young guys, but we can't just count on these young guys. We need to bring in some veteran players as well. And I think that was the thinking on this, at this position in particular, is to bring in a veteran guy to go along with Kyle Trask. Because, as of yesterday, it was just Kyle Trask in the quarterback's room. So I think it's going to be a good situation to have somebody who has experience. Dan and I were sort of going through his numbers, and doesn't have a ton of postseason experience. He just has 2 games in the 2020 season in the playoffs.
Yeah, a big win for the Browns over the Steelers. I think they put up 43 or 48 points. And it was a great time for Cleveland. I remember
big turnaround
celebrations, kind of announcing that we're here. And they went on. They lost their next game, but they hadn't been in the postseason since then. So that was kind of Baker Mayfield's arrival. And when he got to Cleveland as the number 1 pick, they were a complete debacle and built into, for that season, a contender. And then things kind of went sideways on him a little bit. Some of it self-inflicted, and I know that's a concern of Bucs fans for sure. But he has the potential. He has shown it at the NFL level to win in the postseason, and that, to me, checks a box when you're looking for a veteran to come in here and compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at the skill set that he has, and, I'd like to think that any Heisman Trophy winner and a first overall pick is a pretty good baseline, that you have the talent there. And a lot of these situations you see, and Dan and I were also talking about earlier, the Geno Smith. You get somebody who gets good coaches, good players, and something that fits for them is paramount. And this could be that situation for Baker Mayfield. If this is something where he just gels with the coaches and him and Canales, this could be a winning recipe for the Bucs and for Baker.
You have to remember, JB, that in the past 3 years, we are Brady-centric when we talk about veteran leadership. But think of the veterans who are already on this team, who already had an established culture, and the veterans that have come in during that era of Brady, the Leonard Fournettes, the Rob Gronkowskis, the Julio Jones, and guys who came here wanting to win and wanting to assimilate themselves into this locker room. I think Baker Mayfield's going to fall in love with this place when he gets a taste of his teammates. I think it's going to be. I think this is going to be really a good thing for him, which will ultimately be a good thing for the Bucs.
That perfect segue. My first question is, the first person I'm thinking about when I hear the report of this news, I'm thinking about Mike Evans. If you're Mike Evans, you're number 13, you're big dog in the clubhouse, and you hear about Baker Mayfield being the quarterback, the successor to the GOAT, your reaction is what, Karen?
Oh gosh, I'm not Mike Evans.
No, I want you to put yourself in Mike Evans' shoes.
Let's call Mike. Can we have Mike
You're
Evans
tall.
call in?
Yeah, call.
Right?
Yeah, just text him. He's in your phone. He's on your speed dial, right?
Mike Evans, the only quarterback he knew until Tom Brady was Jameis. And he loved Jameis. And you can insert any joke you like. Mike Evans flourished under Jameis Winston and also Tom Brady. I think he could catch passes from anybody. I think if the offense provides the opportunities to free him up, he's going to get targets and he's going to get some catches and get big ones. I'd be licking my chops if I'm Baker Mayfield.
I'm just
Coming
very
here.
curious. Well, I think this is a great thing that we were saying for the Bucs with new offensive coordinator. Dave Canales has a guy. Well, two guys. If we want to get into the quarterback battle with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, but he's got Baker Mayfield in here, and it's like you can start putting the pieces together, see what this offense is going to look like, and it's going to be new for everybody.
We're going to give everybody here an opportunity to vote. If you're joining us right now live in a live capacity on the WFLA Facebook page, you can vote. You'll see a interactive widget pop up on your screen, and you can tell us, you see it here on your screen, who should start at quarterback. And we've got a couple of folks in this graphic. We see Baker there in a LA Rams uniform. Not too many pictures in the photo database of Baker in a Rams uniform compared to his time with the Panthers and with the Browns. But there he is on the left. And then on the right, there's Kyle Trask in a practice uni. And also there's the GOAT watching oh so carefully by his side. So how much of a competition is this going into training camp this year in your estimation?
My first opinion is there is no competition, and I've had interesting opinions presented to me that it is a competition. And what would create that is if Mayfield comes in and starts making mistakes, and I think Karen's kind of leaning in that direction. I think this is Baker Mayfield's job as of 4:00 today.
Yeah.
But if it goes the wrong direction, they're going to have to choose another path. Now, I don't think there's another quarterback coming in here.
Yeah.
It may not be some sexy name or whatever, but there's going to be
a third.
There's going to be a third that you can go to just in case Trask ultimately shows he's not ready
To be a backup.
Right.
Or to be the starter.
Well, you go
Depends
back to see, the thing is, I go back to last preseason, and I have to preface this by saying is, remember, we have a new offensive coordinator, new offense, new language for everyone. It's kind of a do-over, if you will. But last preseason was supposed to be the what do we have with Kyle Trask? That question did not get answered. It didn't get answered, in my opinion, because I never saw him roll out there with the ones during the preseason. And I don't know if when you say it wasn't a fair chance for him or not, but he just wasn't ready to dress. And he dressed for games later, played a little bit in the Atlanta game at the end of the season. But now he's got to start over.
Right, and that's what...
This could be great for Kyle Trask.
It could be.
Yeah.
So I think Kyle Trask learned some invaluable skills from Tom Brady as far as work ethic, preparation, and the fundamentals of being an NFL player and how to set yourself up for success. But to your point, Dan, about everybody's learning a new language. So Kyle Trask, it's not like, okay, well, he's been here for 2 years, so he has a leg up with the language and the system.
Correct.
New for everybody. So now that's even playing field. They're both starting at zero in that. And then you have 5 years of experience with Baker Mayfield. So he's going into his 6th year. He's played for 3 teams. This will be his 4th team.
Different coordinators, different languages, and he did it 2 times last year, to Carolina and then to Los Angeles, where, in my opinion, I thought he was really starting to get his legs under him. I thought he performed well with the Rams in that setting. and so kind of it wasn't a rebirth, but it was kind of a I'm still here. Kind of the reason he's here now. He played himself into this position of being in the discussion for a team that needs a quarterback of this type, which is what the Bucs now have. This is what an opportunity, by the way, JB. I know it's kind of all encompassing, but we are sitting on potentially a gold mine if the Baker Mayfield that we know, the Heisman Trophy guy and the guy who lit up highlight reels in Cleveland, if he gets to that, this could be a steal for the Bucs at that price.
We had this feeling that there was going to be a name that was going to look at the Bucs and be like, "Ooh, this is an attractive opportunity. Let me get to Florida. No state income tax. I get to throw to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, some of the weapons down there." And while it's, look, it's difficult to fill the shoes of Tom Brady and to be the quarterback after him, but someone was going to be the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right.
I'm also thinking about, though, what's so interesting? We're also seeing, of course, all the headlines emerge on Twitter this afternoon about Aaron Rodgers apparently making his migration over, a la Brett Favre, making his migration over to the New York Jets. And what's interesting about there's a parallel there, is there not? Because you're talking about two franchises moving on from legends, first ballot Hall of Famers, and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. But the situation is different for the Packers than it is for the Bucs. The Bucs have a quarterback that they have developed for the last couple of years in Kyle Trask. The Packers have Jordan Love, but it sounds like they are ready to pass the baton over to Jordan Love. Like that's the rule of succession, if you will.
Yeah.
But with the Buccaneers, it's just because are we dealing with two different talents, Kyle Trask versus a Jordan Love, and the buzz surrounding each one of those guys?
I believe so, because Jordan Love had actual NFL game experience and had success. And I know he had a game last year. Was it the San Francisco game where he was absolutely awful?
I don't know which game it was.
So they had a game that was a clunker, the Packers, if I recall. And it might have been the 49ers. I might be wrong on that. But overall, they were very pleased with his work. And when Aaron Rodgers came back in, the Packers went on an insane streak. So it was all good again with Aaron Rodgers. But I think if you put Jordan Love next to Kyle Trask, I don't think it's really that close right now. I think Jordan Love is ready to assume an NFL starting role and ready to take the lead at Green Bay without the drama really hanging over his situation. So Kyle Trask is it's just a different situation for him. If the offense were the same, I would feel a lot better about Trask.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it can be overstated, the fact of like the game reps that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you've been in the NFL, but the live game reps in NFL regular season games, sustaining drives, going up against different opponents, executing game plans, being able to adjust on the fly. They're like, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that there is no tape for the coaches to go on.
I never saw, and I go back to the Atlanta game, I wouldn't say there was the deer in the headlights, but it wasn't a big enough sample to see what he can do on multiple series where you grind and grind. How many times have you seen a young quarterback come in and it starts off not good, and you're thinking, oh boy, this guy's overwhelmed, and then 4 or 5 series later, the game continues, his team is still in the game, and all of a sudden, this young quarterback who you were shaking your head at has a chance to do something just because they keep grinding. And we haven't had a chance to see that from
exactly.
Trask.
Like you said, the sample size of the Atlanta game.
He came in, he filled in, the game was already...
And not with your starters, not with your ones.
It was clear. It was more or less like a preseason game, as you remember. It was, and again, like I criticized the preseason plan. I wanted to see Trask behind the full starting offensive line. I wanted Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out there and to have him run the offense. But the way the preseason worked out, by design, and can't blame the Bucs for doing it, was to keep Tom Brady off the field as much as possible until they needed him in that third game to get a couple of series in. to get ready for the regular season.
Check out these live poll results from the WFLA Facebook
Team
page.
Trask is going strong. Do you think that's, Florida ties?
For our audio
Possibly.
audience, for those
Yeah.
listening in and not watching who can't see the graphic, we posted who should start for the Bucs, and our live audience, 56%.
Wow.
Of how many votes? How many votes are we up to? I need to know sample size.
It's not giving me a count at the moment, but it's 56% to 44%.
Okay.
I'll try to get an updated number by the end of the
Okay.
show.
So the polls are still open.
Poll is still open for people to vote on
You
this
know
question.
what? One of my things, though, I'm seeing this. Baker Mayfield's got to battle this image that he has created that is, the only word I can think of is polarizing. There is an image of this brash guy's got the headband thing going, and it's not all great plays. There's some disastrous moments, and that's just when you offer yourself up for that kind of criticism. I think you're seeing some of that right now.
And another thing we were talking about, Dan and I were earlier, about interceptions. So through 5 seasons, he has 102 passing touchdowns and 64 interceptions. And Dan reminded me about Dave Canales, about how his emphasis is like protect the football at all costs.
Be a point guard.
Right.
And that's what Scott
Distribute.
Reynolds said. Yeah, I thought it was a great reference.
Be a
is
point guard.
Distribute to your, don't do the most.
Yeah. And
don't
at the
force
time,
it.
At the time, he was describing working with Kyle Trask, which sounds like the only way you're going to have success. Don't let him take risks until we know he's got his feet under him, he's ready to go, and then try to turn him loose. Now you got a guy who lives on the edge with an offensive coordinator who preaches safety first.
But then you think about it, like I was talking about earlier, how certain players just work really well with certain coaches. And this could be a match made in heaven. Canales and Baker Mayfield. And this could be the guy who shows him or teaches him things that other coaches in his past haven't.
Yep.
Every coach is different. And if you get that combination, the sky's the limit.
Sometimes it just clicks,
Yeah.
right? And there's a potential for this to click, especially with an offense that's not too shabby with some of the
Right.
weapons. There's a lot of question marks. Shaq Mason no longer a Buc, so
Correct.
there's going to be, some movement on the offensive line that perhaps is something we'll save for another episode of Bucs Bonus. One thing I want to ask one more time, while we have the opportunity to do so, before we have to move on to some other headlines. I think, Dan, you mentioned something. He has an edge to him. Baker Mayfield, there's just buzz surrounding Baker Mayfield. There's a marketability factor here.
Yes.
The decision, as we heard, the reports came out that it was going to be either Baker Mayfield or Jacoby Brissett. This is far more of a flashy move than Jacoby Brissett. Nothing against Jacoby Brissett, who's been was serving the Browns well as far as filling in for Deshaun Watson while Deshaun Watson was suspended for the Browns. But this is a buzzy move. This is a move that's going to attract a lot of headlines. The question is it a good move? When it comes to the marketability of the franchise?
I think it depends on wins and losses, period. I think a lot of things are forgiven if you get off to a decent start to the season and your team is competitive.
Are we going to be seeing
some of the things that happened last year? Don't convert third downs, get a yard.
Progressive commercials on the pirate ship? Is that
Oh
what we're going to
my
see?
I hope
That's
so.
right, yeah.
If they don't, then some marketing people need to get fired.
But you're right. It comes down to wins and losses. No doubt. Right, Karen?
Yeah, and also just chemistry too is, people's personalities and how they mesh together. And I think it's going to be.
I think he's gonna really hit it off with Mike Evans.
Yeah,
I really do, because it's.
I actually haven't thought about that yet. I should
different
probably go
energy.
through and.
There's a different energy, and Mayfield's he's that fast talker, and I think once they get really a rhythm going, I think it's going to be fun to watch from a passing game standpoint.
Yeah.
I really do.
And personalities. Like you're thinking about Kyle Trask. He seemed pretty reserved in the few times we've spoken with him.
As far as now, you guys are Bucs insiders. You spend a lot of time with the Bucs, WFLA News Channel 8, Your Official Bucs Station. Are you guys looking forward to talking with Baker Mayfield and covering him this season?
Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. And Kyle Trask, too. We've had a few interactions with Kyle. He is like Karen says, a little more reserved than Baker Mayfield, but he is extremely humble. And in the couple of times that I've interviewed him and spoken with him, he is locked in.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy wants to succeed and will do whatever it takes. And he learned that, well, he had it, but he also had that instilled in him from Tom Brady. What a wonderful example to follow. Trask is not losing that. So now he has this in front of him. And I can guarantee you we're going to get the best of Kyle Trask this summer. And
the other thing that Dan and I go off of is that, you know, there's so much we don't see because we're not out of all the practice for all the open periods. And we go off of what the coaches say. And he's gotten rave reviews from the coaching staff and his colleagues, his teammates. So we're putting all of these pieces together of what we've seen plus what we've heard. And the other thing that I'll be interested to see is different people around you bring out different parts of your personality. So maybe there's a fiery side of Trask that if Baker brings this spice and Trask is like, okay, and that brings that out of him because everybody has different like temperaments that can be amplified around different people. So that could be something. I think it would come out a little bit if Trask played quite a bit and had some success. And now this doesn't feel like a guy who's trying to get it done. It feels like a guy who belongs. Yeah. And I think once he gets to that, I think he'd be perfectly fine. And I think you'd see a little more of that little spice out of him as well. But he is extremely humble. Yeah.
Two final questions before, because we only have a few more minutes here on this edition of Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY with Bucs insiders Dan Lucas, Karen Loftus. I'm JB Buno. Where does this put the Buccaneers in the NFC South in your estimation? The Saints getting Derek Carr, the Panthers trading up for their quarterback of the future. The Falcons were better than most expected last season, so this puts the Bucs where? Dan?
Wide open.
Yeah. Oh, this division is this is going to be first place to last place, a couple of games difference.
I'm so excited about it.
And like it was last year, we didn't expect that last year. We thought the Bucs would run away with it. And so even if the Bucs are, well, let's just say if they get to 7 and what's my math? 7 and 10, 8 and 9.
I didn't come here for the math, so you're on your own.
If they have another 8 and 9 year, 8 and 9 might win it. So it's I think the Saints are probably going to emerge as the biggest challenge to the Bucs. Their defensive line took a hit this week in free agency, but they've now brought in a couple of new faces on there, which is, to me, the Saints. I've always been a defensive line team, especially against the Bucs. And then obviously they've got the quarterback situation figured out there. So the Saints are back, as far as I'm concerned, in this division at least, and they're going to be the biggest.
Love to see contender. A division coming down to the final games.
Me
the teams
too.
Individually would say differently.
Right.
They want to run away with it. Want to clinch it in November.
I know, right?
Make that Week 17 game mean something,
absolutely.
Right? Some drama there at the end of the season. And really quickly on quarterbacks, final note, of course, Baker Mayfield, very charismatic person. His introductory press conference will be one that we'll all be paying very close attention to. I'm excited to hear from Baker. Have we heard as to even when that might be? This is really hot off the, hot off the presses type news.
The Bucs are now putting emails out. The first one we have is Jamel Dean, who was, of course, that deal happened Monday. So they're doing this in order. So Jamel Dean's going to meet with the media tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning.
Look at you ready with the picture.
Ready.
We'll see you, JB.
By the way, and I know you wanted to touch on some of the other deals.
Yes.
So I'll go ahead and take it there. This Jamel Dean is massive. And also this afternoon, Lavonte David re-signing for 1 year. His dream was to return to possibly finish his career as a Buccaneer. He's going to get that chance this year. There isn't a guy out there that I'm as happy for as Lavonte David, a guy you want to see do this on his terms. I even put on Twitter, while you're playing this year, pick out your Ring of Honor spot. He's that that important to this franchise. I love it. He was supposed to be unaffordable. Is that a word? And then Jamel Dean and Lavonte David were not supposed to be back. Yeah. And guess who's back?
Two of the top free agents.
Both.
And again, speaking to how much these guys want to stay in Tampa, play for the Bucs, this organization. Yeah. And I think that's a good recruiting tool for outside free agents too. I mean, Tom Brady's not here anymore, but people still want to stay.
If they win the division, if they somehow get hot and get on a run, and Tom Brady's not here, wow, this place.
Yeah.
Is this the destination or what for free agents down the road and thinking about where can I be in 2 years, 3 years? Do I have a chance to win a Super Bowl? If that window's still open, man, Jason Light is GM of the century if that happens.
Merriam-Webster, unaffordable is a word.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank
I got you back there.
I never spelling and grammar is not part of the job. Say what you want.
And as far as Jamel Dean coming back huge, Lavonte David coming back huge, and there's a lot of maneuvering around that Jason Light has to do with the start of the NFL year, officially being underway. But as far as subtractions for the Buccaneers, who is on the way, who will not be returning for the 2023-2024 NFL season?
Well, right now,
Nacho.
Yeah, Raheem Nunez-Roches, a good defensive lineman who started to get a little bit more of a bigger role in the past couple of seasons, signed with the New York Giants. He was an unrestricted free agent. The Bucs had 23 guys, including Tom Brady, as unrestricted coming into this period. They have, I want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are accounted for. Brady was on that list
6.
too.
Oh,
So yeah, Brady was 6. Lavonte David, Jamel Dean, Anthony Nelson, and Aaron Stinney, a guard, all re-signed with the Bucs. Raheem Nunez-Roches left for the Giants. Remaining on this list, and I'm going to give you the realistic names that could come or go. The biggest for me is probably cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting. I would like to know his future, and also defensive lineman Akeem Hicks and Will Golston, 2 defensive linemen. For me, those guys, I'll throw safety Mike Edwards there too. I'm going all defense on that list of concerns for Bucs fans. Can they bring those guys back? I don't know if they can.
Take some salary cap wizardry,
Yes,
Karen, right? To make it all work.
Right?
What about you? As far as key additions, subtractions, what are you keeping an eye on?
I mean, Dan covered them all. So,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So, folks, we are going to be keeping, of course, close tabs on your Tampa Bay Buccaneers with insiders Dan Lucas and Karen Loftus. So much more ahead, not to mention the NFL draft next month. Buccaneers picking at 19 overall, if I'm not mistaken.
that is correct.
19 overall.
I'm curious now to see what they
Yeah.
do with that pick.
Sure.
This clears things up a little bit, I think, free agency. It always kind of sets the stage. Now, do they go offensive line? Do they go with a defensive back? I think it gives us a little something to hone in on, if you will.
And I have a funny feeling that we're going to have our next episode talking about who the Buccaneers should be targeting in the NFL draft. We really hope that you can join us. I'd really like to thank Dan Lucas and Karen Loftus, your Bucs insiders on WFLA News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. Bucs Bonus is the official podcast of your official Bucs station, and it is powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. All the details on Baker Mayfield reportedly coming to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when he will be introduced, and other free agency moves. You can find it all right now on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We'll see you next time, folks, on Bucs Bonus. Take care, everybody, and as always, go Bucs.